freshman year in high school.
Okay.
So,
I didn't work anything until I got about 55, and then I had to do it.
It's on. Okay. Get those big flashing lights.
Still no shipment yet.
You guys ready to do this?
yeah,
We got
Yes,
about
please.
half a minute.
These two.
depends on which clock you're looking at.
Well, the one that works for me is the one on my wrist.
Pretty close.
Okay. Well, we can go that way.
Synchronize it.
Let's just get them going here. Everything. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and thank you for coming to the meeting this evening, September 20th. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Crumick,
Here.
Councilmember Bellinger,
Here.
Councilmember Swift,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Legero,
Here?
and Mayor Alves.
Here. All right. We're going to have a little short comment from Councilman Crummage. He's requested a moment, so let's give it to him.
Thank you, Mayor Alves. I'd like to take this time, the next few minutes, to recognize an individual that's been a part of this community for a long time. Her efforts have been far-reaching. She has helped to stabilize this community. She's helped to lead this community. She's helped to organize and maintain harmony in this town that we all care about. I'm speaking of our city manager, Tammy Alcantar. So at this time, I just want to say a few words. Tammy, I greatly appreciate everything that you've done. I know it's probably an emotional meeting. I know it is for me. It is for me too. You've been the only city manager that I've been under while I've been up here, and you've helped me in many ways to learn the way the local government works, and helping me personally and professionally. And I know I speak for the rest of the council up here that we greatly appreciate everything you've given to the town. And I know we're going to see more of you in a different role, but at this time I would just like a round of applause and a standing ovation for Tammy Alcantar.
I am at home clapping for you, Tammy. This is Justin. I'm clapping hard.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it. I was going to save it for staff communications, but this is my last meeting, and it is bittersweet. And as Councilmember Crumick pointed out, a little emotional. So I thank the council for the opportunity that you've given me to sit in this position, and the things that I've learned throughout the 8 years of doing this, I will take with me and, put it to use. And I know the city will be fine. You have a great staff, and they will be sure to take care of you guys. I couldn't have did my job without the staff that we have. So kudos to them because they made me look good. So
We'll take it easy on you tonight.
thank you.
Okay?
I'm done. Thanks.
All right, let's go to consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. I do have a question on number 5. Have we appointed someone?
Yes, currently appointed to the board is myself, and the alternate is Robert Swift.
So we're good still, we have somebody
Correct.
covering it.
So we're appointing Dominique as
Your replacement.
in my replacement, correct?
Okay, I'll accept a motion with the consent calendar.
Mayor Alves, regarding item number 2, I'll be abstaining from voting on check number 075867.
Very good. I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those abstain? Carries 5-0. Very good. Staff communications.
So Mayor and Council, before you tonight, included in your agenda packet were the monthly reports for the departments, the treasurer's report, the police department, animal control, recreation, development services, building department, public works, water department, and the wastewater treatment plant, along with a project report. And staff is available to answer any questions that you might have on those.
I have a question regarding the $8,505.65 on St. John. We talked about this before.
Correct.
What's the point of having that money there?
Well, it was money that was collected for improvements within that, that intersection with the railroad tracks.
Right, and where's that gone?
So I think we talked about we would use that money to apply towards a street light when we do our Main Street sidewalk that's gonna go from First Street all the way to St. John. So we would use that as part of that project.
So does it stay in where it's at, or does it move to another fund?
It'll stay there until it's utilized.
And what's the projected time of that? We have no idea?
Engineering is working on the engineering documents right now. So I don't know that the project will get out to bid this year. It may be next year.
Maybe.
I know we need to move fast on that. They want to see
Right.
that
They want us
with
to
the
use-
monies, so
Correct.
we definitely want to make sure we're making some
Yeah.
quick
So
progress.
the engineer is working on it already.
All right, good enough. Is there any questions for staff? Does anyone out there have any questions for staff? Does anyone online or at the phones have a question for staff? No one's responding, so we're going to move on.
So we do have a couple other staff communications.
Okay.
I just wanted to let the council know that we did start our monthly meetings with the school district. We met with them last Thursday. They have scheduled their board members throughout the end of the year so that they're having 2 board members at the meeting. Would encourage council to let us know what month that you can attend, and then we can make a schedule so you guys can know ahead of time. November, it's typically the 3rd Thursday of the month. November is going to be different, I think, or is it the 2nd Thursday of the month? It's the 2nd Thursday of the month. But November would be different because it falls on November 11th on Veterans Day, so it would be November 18th. But other than that, the meetings would be the 2nd Thursday of the month. So just encourage the council to let us know what month that you can make it to that meeting.
What day of the week and what time?
It's Thursdays at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Twice a month.
Just once a month.
What day of the month? Tuesday?
The 2nd Thursday of
Second
the
Thursday,
month.
second.
So they did relay some information about pool repairs that we'll bring back to the council at another meeting for discussion too.
Okay.
The other staff item that I have is as part of our energy project with NG, which included the solar, some HVAC, the water meter swap out, part of that program is that they will make a donation to a nonprofit organization of the city's choice. And it would be in the amount of $25,000. Staff has talked, and we've recently had several requests for some improvements in parks, including swings in Sanchez. Latta Park, I've had somebody ask about swings, park benches. Brentwood, we had the request for replacement of the slides.
Sanchez with swings too.
Yeah, and I did indicate that one. So, staff's thought process was maybe we could reach out to Lions Club or somebody to see if they would spearhead utilizing that money for maybe some of those improvements in the parks.
So how much was it again?
$25,000. But we do need to let NG know who we are gonna designate it to. So I have not talked, staff has not talked to any organization at this point. So we are looking for some, guidance from council on that.
Is $25,000 enough money to do much?
Well, I think for some of the items that I just said, I think that we could probably accommodate those parks, especially if Lions Club was to help us with it, then I think that we could do that. Or whatever organization.
Help with, in terms of physical
Well,
health?
so they would, I think if the Lions Club purchased the equipment, Justin, I don't know if you got any prices. I know he was reaching out for some prices, I
Would
don't
it
know.
change if we did it versus you doing it in terms of the public, in terms of,
Yeah, so if you guys,
yeah, save some money?
yeah, if there's labor involved, if we can't do it within staff and we had to hire somebody, then there'd definitely be savings.
Okay, well, I can't speak for the Lions Club by myself, but I will say this, it's something we can bring up at the board meeting and get back to the
Okay.
city.
Okay,
Yeah, the reason that's intriguing possibilities, because there also might be monies through Lions Club International that can help match some of these things in some
Wonderful.
cases, so yeah.
Wonderful.
So it can really go a long way.
Yeah.
You know, towards improving our parks for the kiddos.
We also talked about skateboard money.
Yeah, we like leveraging money.
Yep. Okay.
and then just one more thing that I kind of forgot at the beginning. With my leaving the city, the council has appointed Dominique as our interim city manager, so I just want to recognize her going forward, and I wish her the best. I know she will be fine, and again, we have a very supportive staff, so it's a great team here, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then I know, Dominique, you had one more item too.
So I have an update on our request for proposals for our senior housing projects. Unfortunately, we didn't have anyone submit any project applications. I did go through our software. There were over 125 companies that reviewed the proposal. There were 82 of them in the construction agencies or construction area that downloaded it and reviewed it, but we did not get any submittals. So at this time, I was looking at staff, at council, whether you would be okay with me trying to move forward with RHF, which was who we had originally discussed with, that currently owns Heritage House, and try to continue moving forward with something with them, as well as reaching out to the other ones and finding out if they were still interested.
What do you think the stumbling block is?
Yeah.
I think with everything that's going on with prices, construction prices, those type of things, I think that maybe, and this is just purely my opinion from talking to companies, projects like these are just not penciling out at this time.
Yeah, I figured it.
For that attainable portion that we're looking for. But I also think it's having to put things together and put together a package with the possibility that it might not be selected, so.
The group that has
with
the-
all the other things that are going on.
The group that has the one we currently have has been pretty successful with that.
They have, and so that's
reliable.
why I was thinking them first, and they're very experienced with the things that they need to do to get projects like that funded.
They're also familiar with Escalon too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have the waiting list that we know is sitting there. They have those connections that we know are there. Which doesn't mean I can't move forward with the other ones as well. But they were basically where I was looking to for the main.
Have they submitted a proposal to us yet?
They have not.
So why don't we take a look when they do, and then if it's not what we need, we can look around.
Okay.
Are we
Does that
still
make
moving
sense?
forward with the project at the old stockyard on Irwin and 120 there?
That's a group out of Stockton.
That's
Are they
the
still
Housing
moving with that
Authority.
one?
They are. So they have to apply to the state and federal government for their funding. They're also applying for tax credits, which RHF would do the same. It's just different pots of money. They have different programs, and so they're both looking for tax credits, but the Housing Authority also has the component of the vouchers. And because it's the county doing that project, they're in charge of how many vouchers can go out, whereas RHF, we've kind of already explained to them that we weren't looking for most of them for vouchers at that housing development, and so that's where we would have to be flexible with number of units to kind of make it all pencil out for that as
So
well.
what do you need from staff to see, from council, a consensus?
I'm just looking for a consensus, I guess, would work out. to
Gentlemen,
move
does it make
forward with
sense for us
them.
to pursue, not pursue, but to look into the current offer that she has for us?
I got a couple questions. So we put out an RFQ, request for qualification, and we had how many?
0.
Okay, that's different than RFP, request for
Correct.
proposal, right? And the RFQ is the first step.
So the request for qualifications is basically asking for your background and experience on these types of projects.
If you're interested.
If you're interested, but we also incorporated into that RFQ project proposals, submitting a proposal as well.
Right, so my thoughts on this, I'm not a developer, but my thinking is that the reason it doesn't pencil if you're going to build something is that the scope is probably too small. If they're going to build 50 units, that's not enough for them to make a profit, especially if some of those are earmarked for attainable housing and those types of things. So my question is, would the next step be to submit another RFQ with possibly different parameters?
We can do that as well. I can open up I can update what we have currently, maybe open it up, make it a little bit more flexible and put it back out again, maybe for 30 days instead
Yeah.
of 60.
Because in my mind, we have this land out there that's an aging almond orchard, and we have to decide what to do with it. We've all been on board with the fact that it'd be a great spot for senior housing. So I don't think just because we've hit a roadblock like this, which I did not expect, that we should give up on it. I think it's a good idea for the town. I think it's something we need to pursue. If we need to adjust our RFQ or the marketing material we put out, then we should pursue that. So that would be my direction.
Okay, well,
I would agree with Councilmember Cronk, but I would also add, it would be really nice to have some idea from some of these developers who maybe were really looking seriously at this,
Yeah, what do they want?
yeah, to know in what direction you should be
The
tweaking
feedback.
this. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kind of feedback.
And I was planning on giving them all a
Sure.
call, just to find out in a non-fashion why they didn't submit, yeah.
Yeah, if you could like make those calls and like get back to us maybe next meeting and say if you got any feedback,
Sure.
like if they say whatever, and then
Sure.
we'll have better direction.
So actually, I did receive feedback from one of the potential, they actually let us know a few weeks ago that they would not be submitting. And for them, it was because, I believe I printed it out. They talked about doing market demand analysis as well as preliminary market studies. And because we hadn't done those type of items yet, and we're purely just moving forward with this project because we have people in the community that were wanting it, that to them, that wasn't enough to move forward and invest into a project that maybe didn't fit the needs of the area. Looking at it from a wider, we're looking at Escalon, the people in town, the people who have the needs in our community, and they're looking at it from an area standpoint. And so they had said they weren't going to submit because we didn't have those type of documents, and that maybe if we completed those type of documents and sent them over or released them, they would take a look at them and then decipher whether they would be interested in doing a project.
I just think if we sit back and go, we have this, land, we're willing to talk about what we can do with it, and it's such a great community that people would flock to us and want to build. But I still think we need to go fishing and throw things out there and try to get what we want and be proactive on this and not reactive, but proactive.
I'll reach out to all of them.
I'd just like to add, though, the whole concept here is for Escalon to get some housing for the locals here. I mean, if we're gonna put out a deal for the whole community around us, I don't know if that's such an idea I wanna share into. I like the idea we're trying to build something for the locals. That was the whole concept from day one. In terms of numbers, we could debate the numbers. But I don't think I'm interested in trying to find out what everybody around us wants so they can come live here. I don't particularly care for that. That's not been my intent.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of how we've landed, where we're landed, is we're looking for those attainable housing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't pencil, and so we've had to widen our scope on the project and to try to accommodate those, to get a project that will give us those attainable units. We need to have some affordable in, so they're able to get some funding from the state if necessary, and we need to let the market rate in to help compensate for the attainable ones, and that's what's making this project a little bit larger. Like, we originally talked 25 units, and then we've had to raise it anywhere between 70 to 100, and I did have one of the developers say even with 100 units, they were still having a hard time penciling it out.
Yeah, it's not gonna
So
fly.
it makes it hard for them, and they don't, and one of them actually didn't do projects that large, like 100 is their max. It doesn't pencil out for us right now with this economy. We don't build more than that number.
What about the organization that we currently have? What's their feedback?
From RHF?
Yes.
I have not heard from them yet. I was going to reach out to them today, and then I decided to wait till this meeting tonight. And so I
I'd
have
be
a
interested in hearing their
email
proposal.
drafted for tomorrow.
Okay.
Sitting in my
All right, well, anyway, did you kind of get an idea what we're looking at?
I did, yes.
Okay, good enough.
And have we talked to Bethany or Hospice about their campuses and perhaps one of the local ones developing here?
We did talk with Samaritan Village, who also has the Alexander Cohen Hospice House. And that was the agency that was really, really interested in doing a project similar to theirs here, but was looking for those demand analyses and market rates studies and stuff, so.
I could see getting there eventually if that's the kind of project we're.
Yeah, and they were pretty
We'll see.
excited about it, and they did, their CEO actually offered himself as providing, if needed, management services through a senior living management agreement if we were ever interested, so.
So they're looking for certain reports or what are they looking for that they don't
The
have?
demand is in the area.
How do we show them that?
I would think we would need to have somebody conduct those type of analysis for us.
Okay,
So they said it was their experience that the project's going to reach a point where the product offerings and unit mix needs to be better defined. And so at that point, they remain open to, further discussions, remain open to providing some assistance to us if we need assistance, but they really wouldn't want to move forward unless we had something in writing on the market demand analysis and as well as a market study.
okay, then to move this thing forward, I think we need a market demand study. I think we need to have somebody conduct that. If that's an outside agency, then I think that's something we need to look at. What do you guys think?
I think maybe we keep that card in our pocket pending what you find out tomorrow with RHF.
Okay.
I mean, that is a good idea, and if RHF is gonna be at standstill, that's probably gonna have to be our next step. I mean, I don't think any of these developers are gonna want to do the homework for us. They're probably thinking we should do it.
Well, I don't think
Which
they're-
maybe we should.
I don't
you know.
think they're set up like the organization that's currently here.
Right.
They're used to this as their game. They're going to tell us basically what we need to do. If we're going to have them. And I don't think we will end up in a lot of different areas. I think they'll know, they kind of will fit what we need. All right, so let's move on. Are we pretty much done here?
So contacting companies, getting feedback, continuing to move forward with RHF.
All right.
Anything else at
That's good for me.
That's good.
this point in time? Okay.
Okay. Does anybody in the audience want to add anything before we move on? Okay, anybody on phone want to add anything? Okay. We're going to move on to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is the discretionary decision made by the mayor. And I will open up to those of you out there. If you have something you'd like to bring down and talk about, we're all ears. How about anybody on the internet or the phones? We have a taker. Okay. Just have your name, please.
Danny Fox, 1510 Adriana.
Very good.
Tammy, congratulations.
Thank
Done
you.
a super job for the city, 18 years from assistant finance director all the way to navigating us through some tough times as the city manager, interim city manager, and for the past few years. So you did a great job. We're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
And your next employer is going to have a great deputy finance director.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there? All right, is there anyone else? Okay, back to the phones. Anybody on the phones? Okay, since no one's got anything for us, we're going to close the matters presented from the audience. We're going to move to public hearing. There are none. Then we're going to move into administrative matters. Consideration of proposal connecting alternatives to the Nixie Root Water Treatment Plant.
So, Mayor and Council, tonight, before you is the consideration of a proposed connection alternatives to the Nixie DeGroot water treatment plant, which is through the SSJID. So the city of Escalon invested in the water treatment plant with South San Joaquin Irrigation District and the cities of Lathrop, Manteca, and Tracy. The city of Escalon sells its current allotment of water to the city of Tracy. From 2003 to 2014, the monies from the city of Tracy went towards the initial construction loan. The funds from 2015 to current have been reserved for the city's future connection to the water treatment plant. The city is estimated to have $837,000 at the end of the current fiscal year. In recent years, there have been many discussions regarding the connection cost to the system. City Council directed staff to confirm the cost to connect to the wastewater treatment plant. Staff has been working with Pace Advanced Water Engineering in evaluating the cost and the alignment of the connection. In addition, staff has had discussions with both Pace and the water treatment plant operations staff. Tonight, Pace will be presenting 3 options for the city to connect to the water treatment plant. 2 of the options do require allocating land from the future parkland before submitting the 3 alternatives to SSJID. Pace and staff are looking for approval from the city council. So with that, Andy Comer is here tonight with Pace to give that presentation.
Good evening. Hi, Andy Comer with Pace. I'm the Vice President of Pace. I've been with Pace for 21 years. And good to see everybody again. I was here about 2 years ago to talk about the wastewater plant. So tonight to talk about the SSJID potential connection. So SSJID's surface water treatment plant, as Tammy said, it's east of here, northeast of here, quite a ways. And it actually services treated surface water downhill and west, kind of following 120, parallel to 120. And it has various turnouts to bring water to Manteca, and then to bring water to Lathrop, and then to pump water all the way to Tracy. And so there's about 5 or 6 turnouts along the way, and they actually transfer 15 to 20 million gallons a day. So it's a lot of water that they're transferring down a large diameter pipe on Dodds Road from east to west. So in 2003, Black and Veatch, who had sort of outlined and planned where the allocations go, had said the city of Escalon is eligible for 2.5 million gallons a day. Well, it just so happens that the peak demand this summer in the city of Escalon was 2.5 million gallons a day. Okay, so that's a good thing. So we underwent this planning study to see what it would take to tap into that supply on Dodds Road and bring that treated surface water down into town and have an alternative source of potable or drinking water. And please interrupt me at any time with questions.
Is it not working?
Let's give you a little.
There you go, sorry.
Okay. So what do you have today? Today you have 100% groundwater supply, and there's existing wells. You have well 1, 1A, 3, 9, and 10. Well, unfortunately, 1 and 9 have water quality problems, and 1A, which is being renovated right now, 3 and 10 continue to supply low-cost, fresh water, and the groundwater table is hanging in there, and it's not dropping too bad. But those wells plug and chug, especially in the summer, and they struggle to keep up on a daily basis. Yep. So there's 3 SSJID turnout alternatives here if we wanted to consider bringing in surface water as an alternative or a primary source. As I said, it could supply all of your water in the summer if desired with this turnout. So number 1, we looked at bringing that water down all the way south past the railroad tracks, past 120, and tapping into Roosevelt Tank, which is just north of City Hall here, and dropping it into that tank. Let me back up just a little bit and mention that Escalon's fortunate. These other cities sort of have a little bit more challenging configurations on the turnout, but Escalon actually has high pressure where it's drawing off of Dodds Road, and we can take all that water all the way down south into the city under gravity. So we don't have to pump. That was a major sort of finding that we had in the study. Initially, I was asking Tammy, well, where do we find property up on Dodds Road that we have to go acquire? Well, we don't have to. We just have to bring the water down and into town. So there's 3 options to drop it off by gravity. Number 1 is the Roosevelt Tank, which is down here. Number 2, or B, is the Hogan Park, the proposed Hogan Park site north of town, just west of Escalon Balota, and it would be potentially a new storage tank and a new station. We drop off the water there. And then option C is at that same Hogan Park location, but instead of a big tank and a station, we'd basically just have a little small concrete hole in the ground. We'd air drop it into there, air gap it into there, and we'd immediately pump it out. So it's almost like taking SSJID's water directly, but they require an air gap. An air gap means we physically disconnect their system from the city's system. So this water would come down, you just drop it through an air gap so it goes through the air, so we're totally disconnected. You immediately pick it up and pump it again. That is option C. Okay, any questions so far?
What's in the ground, a tank?
It'd be a tank. It'd be such as a
How many gallons?
We have 100,000 gallons outlined here, but it could be even a little bit smaller. It's
How
not
much
very
space
small.
would that take?
I'll show you on about 10 slides from now.
Okay.
Okay? So we're going to take you through these 3 options. A is gravity to the existing Roosevelt tank. When we first were tasked with this project, we thought, man, this is simple. Bring the water down from Dodds Road, run it south of town, drop it into this tank right here, which is right next to the rock quarry. And then from there, use existing pumps, existing tank, and send it into the distribution system. So if you kind of turn your head counterclockwise here and look, Dodds is on the left, okay? So I had to turn it like this just so you can see this long route here. This is about 4 miles. We need to bring this pipeline all the way down until you get to the red on the right-hand side. Unfortunately, we have to cross the railroad tracks and 120 and take a left to get to that Roosevelt tank. And we quickly learned that, hey, this is probably not the best option for that reason. So here's a graphic of what it would look like if you did do this. It'd be 24,000 feet, so almost 5 miles of piping, 20-inch diameter, so just a little bit less than 2-foot diameter. And it'd just bring it down. We'd have a valve at the Roosevelt site that'd be behind the city's fence and secure, and we drop it into that tank. So option B is, instead of bringing it all the way down south of town, the city's existing distribution system actually extends north quite a ways. It's a 14-inch diameter main. It extends pretty far north, and we could avoid excavating through a paved area under the railroad tracks and under Highway 120 if we put it up at Hogan Park. So once again, turn your head to the left, and you'll see, instead of going all the way past the tracks, we would stop short there. It's still a long ways. I think it's 18,000 feet instead of 24,000, but that 6,000 feet of savings is important. Also, we can get a little bit more water through that pipeline because it's not quite as long. If you think about the hose that you have to sprinkle your lawn, the longer the hose, the less flow you get. Same thing here.
I mean, option B and C both had a line item for boring into railroad tracks, and I didn't understand why if it's north of the railroad tracks.
It shouldn't be. If there is, it should be zeroed out.
On there,
yeah. I think I just like to, when I compare things, have the same line
Makes
items
sense.
every time and just put a 0 next to
That
it.
makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So here's a cartoon now of what that system would look like. So to contrast the Roosevelt site where you're bringing it all the way to the tank there at the upper right, now you're bringing it down 18,000 feet, you drop it into a new tank. Option B is the biggest and the best option. It would be a second storage tank in the city of Escalon, and that water from SSJID would then fill that tank. You could fill it all night, and then during the day you sort of pressurize out of that tank. So now you're pressurizing the city from the north, and you're pressurizing the city and the existing station from the south, and everything's pressurized with redundant tanks, redundant stations. It's the best of the best. So if you've got the budget, item B would be the way to go. And then item C, as I said before, we're going to go to the same site, smaller footprint, no big tank, no big pumps. We're just going to drop it through the air gap, take it, and pump it again. So here's a schematic of that. Instead of an above-ground tank, which would look like the Roosevelt tank, you don't get any more storage. You just get a little bit of storage in the ground, not much. And you'll just drop it through the air gap and immediately pump it. As soon as you bring it in, you're going to pump it. And in this configuration, you would treat SSJID almost like a well. Currently, they turn these wells on, and they just run and run and run. And the same thing could happen here with SSJID under this configuration. You could basically call for water all day. At night, it would fill the Roosevelt tank, and during the day, it would draw down the Roosevelt tank, and all the water coming from SSJID would get used by homeowners. Okay? So to your question, Mayor Elves, how much space does it use? So in the next slide, we're going to show you a kind of a early rendering of what Hogan Park looks like, and we were proposing to go in the upper right-hand corner in the back of the baseball field. Unfortunately, configuration B would take up a little bit of center field, but configuration C is small enough that it wouldn't. We could, assuming that's still a baseball field in the northeast corner of the park, we could in theory fit it behind the outfield fence, at least in this phase. Go ahead, Tim. Thank you.
I was going to say, for clarification, it's the future ball field.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
So this proposed here, that line is basically at the golf course, correct? That corner is butted up at the edge of the property line for the golf course?
Yeah,
right.
next to the golf course.
Okay, that's just to make sure I'm on the same page.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And
So
it's
there's
above ground, not below ground.
option C, which we're going to recommend here in a minute, is a lower cost option. It gives the city sort of everything you'd need, but it's a smaller below ground option. And then in the future, if you wanted to switch from C to B, you could do that.
By building another tank.
Building an above ground tank with an above ground pump station and a generator, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. There's a picture of the site right there. And so, cost estimates, right? I think somebody hit the nail on the head earlier. I mean, it's a crazy world right now with supply chains and everything else, right? But we have a lot of experience in cost estimates. We try to keep everything up to speed. We created this maybe 3 months ago. We've updated it. But if we assume that this pipe, 18-inch or 20-inch diameter, is $81 per foot to buy it, which we just picked up the phone, called, and got a recent price a couple weeks ago. And it's an extra $81 to get it in the ground in the unpaved areas, and it's double that to put it in the paved areas, and we add up the infrastructure, the pumping, everything else. The recommended alternative is right about $5 million. The other options are more expensive. Option B, the preferred option, is about $2 million more expensive, maybe like 1.7 more. But you could always expand to that in the future if desired. A preliminary recommendation, alternative C, it avoids the downtown construction. You're going to be connecting to the existing 14-inch water main. It maintains all the city's existing controls that they're used to. They're used to the wells operating a certain way, the booster stations operating a certain way. This C configuration would keep all the controls the same, which is something Matt Morgan had pointed out. It's the lowest cost alternative, and it's expandable to B. And another important point here is because it's in the ground, we need a little bit smaller pipe, so 18-inch instead of a 20-inch pipe, and that sort of minimizes the amount of water in there in the winter. In the winter, there's a bit of an operational challenge if you don't use it. The water could get stagnant, right? And so if it gets stagnant, we've got to use a minimum of about a half an MGD a day just to keep the water fresh. If we don't use it, we would have a drain valve that we could dump into Hogan Park's storm drain system, for example. But just something to keep in mind that in the winter with this facility, we either got to use a minimum amount, or when you go to turn it back on in the spring, we've got to dump whatever was in that line. Okay?
Recharge.
Yeah.
And then one more, I think, Tammy. Here's kind of a rough layout here. It doesn't have to be this big, but you can see the upper part of the page there. It says proposed SSJID flow control assembly. SSJID has the exact same flow control assembly on every single turnout. They have a sleeve valve, a flow meter, a bypass valve, all these different things. That's above ground, but it's 4 feet or so above ground. These pumps would be kind of hanging down into the wet well. You'd see the motors above ground, but we could put sound attenuation around that. And then there's a small electrical building on the bottom, which is masonry block. We could have that equipment outside, but it's preferred to be inside a secured block building. So that's kind of what it would look like in option C.
What could you not put on, if we go with option C? It sounds like the footprint's going to be pretty small in terms of above the ground. What could you do with that area above the ground? I mean, would it just have to be landscape or? what?
Absolutely. I mean, we work on making projects beautiful all the time.
But I mean, ultimately, you wouldn't want to pave over part of it. Would you, or could you?
A
Or?
truck would be, a crane would have to be able to get in there every couple of years to be able to pull that pump and take it out for service.
Okay.
So that's the only challenge there.
Yeah, okay.
But beyond that, we want to make it very well landscaped and screened and secured and blend into the park.
What's the tank made out of?
Concrete, so it could hopefully precast, but probably cast in place if we go up to 100,000 gallons.
Concrete, interesting.
What's the lifespan of, let's say, option C, that underground?
That concrete tank's going to last forever. I mean, that concrete, 100 years. The pumps themselves, they have to be serviced every couple of years and new seals and
But
bearings.
that's a completely self-contained system, and I believe that water's drinkable from the plant,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, I have.
So we don't have to treat it anymore once it gets here.
That's correct. Yep, it's treated water.
I got a couple questions.
Yep.
Just to break it down. So right now, number of decades ago, the city bought the rights to that, what is the water reservoir,
Water.
right?
The surface water plant.
Through SSJD, right? We brought the pipe so far, or the pipe is so far to Dodds Road, right? That's kind of the
It's
spot.
not, so SSJID put the pipeline in as
Right.
part of the original project, and then the cities were responsible for pulling.
Bringing it the rest of the way.
Correct.
So we have always talked about how that was a great idea for the past council, that we bought that and we have that option. So right now, we're being faced with the proposition, how do we continue that? How do we finish that project and bring that into the city? So right now, let me just ask the question, are we still selling the rights to Tracy?
We are. We currently still sell our allotment to Tracy.
And that money over the years has built up to the $840,000.
Correct.
With the idea that eventually we would take that money and use it to finish the connection, I would assume.
Correct.
Okay. So right now, we are, based on Andy's proposal for option C, we're about 20% of the way for the cost for option C. Does that sound about right? So, a lot of this stuff is engineering. It's a little bit over my head, but I will say that I think right now we've got a great plan in front of us. We've got probably the best plan we've ever had and the option to bring this to the city. And I'll just say that over the years, I talked to a farmer a number of years ago, and he said when he first started farming around Escalon, the water table was like 10 feet. You just drill down, and there it is. The water table is going down. The water table, maybe it's holding here, maybe we don't have a good snowpack, whatever. It's going down. Now, I think in Escalon, it's around 85 feet, I would say. It's going to continue to go down. And the city is going to have to continue to maintain the wells that we have, drill more wells, keep digging deeper and deeper. The last well we drilled was 600 and something feet down, right, to get into good water.
I want to say, I'm not positive.
Well, we're going to continue to deal with water quality issues. I think this is something that we need to seriously look at and consider. I know the $5 million number can be scary, but I think that this is a great presentation. Thank you, Andy. And I really want to consider this and find a way that we can possibly get this done.
What kind of overruns are we going to run into, Andy?
Cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, hopefully things calm down next year, right? By the time you get into planning and you get your easements and design, everything else, Long Beach right now has 48 megaships just backed up. If we get some logistics going and get the supply chain fixed, hopefully this stuff comes down, but I don't have a crystal ball. But that would be your biggest potential cost overrun. If the inflation just keeps going, the cost of pipe is going to go up. The cost of labor is going to go up.
Okay. And what about environmental problems?
You're in a very sort of easy pathway to sort of get from Dodds Road down to Hogan Park.
We have no study for environmental impact, correct?
We don't, I don't know
I
if there's a
think
secret.
there was an environmental study that
How long
was
ago?
done with the initial development of the
In the
plant.
path that he's describing?
Majority of it, yes.
Well, I'm just
Because we
curious.
did have a turn at Lone Tree on the original plan.
Yeah. Well, those are things I'd like to clear up before we make any commitments. I'd like to know if there's any more endangered species we got to deal with. I'd like to know what kind of cost overrides we might be looking at. I think,
So tonight, we haven't gotten the go-ahead from SSJID with any of these plans.
Right.
But staff felt that it was important that the council understood that these plans do commit a portion of that future parkland. So
how much land?
How much, it's like, I see 160 by, I don't know what the other is.
Actually, yeah, I mean, it's much smaller than that. I think that was allocated to try to pick up some room for the next phase, but, you know, it might be something around 50 by 60, something like that. 3,000 square feet.
So if we started with that, with the C option, then city grows, the needs change, we need to put a tank out there. What's the footprint requirement for the tank? If we had to add the tank, which is option B, you know, granted, it's an overrun for cost later on down the road, but if it's a need, how much space do you need for that tank? So we need to plan for that if that's a need.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I thought you might ask that. I think that if you do option C and you wanted to expand, you don't necessarily have to put the tank right there anymore. I'm not saying that you have a bunch of spare plots laying all over the place, but you could connect to the distribution system wherever you wanted to in the city. So I sort of made it sound like that SSJID thing and the tank had to go together, but they don't. So you could
We just
actually,
have to find a tie-in somewhere in the city.
Yep,
Off a
put the
line.
tank
we can
anywhere
put a
you
tank
want.
Anywhere in.
Right.
In the city.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think if the question is, you know, what option should be the option going forward and the remainder of the planning, you know, for environmental and everything else, I mean, I would lean towards C.
So another question is, how do we pay for this? Because we have a portion of it. How would we finance the rest of it?
So we do have worked in our rates for this next fiscal year to start paying if we were to go out and get a loan for this connection. It
At
was
what-
considered in the
How
water
much
rates.
of a loan?
So we phased it in the rates at 1.8 each year, 1.8 million each year. So.
So over the next 5 years?
Yeah, so we had a much larger number. The rate schedule doesn't go out that far for the 5 years. But in essence, the next 3 years could pretty much pay for this. So we have the 800, and then you'd have to go out for a loan of some sort to be able, or potential funding with the Sigma, the groundwater.
Right.
There could be some potential funding in that to get the project underway.
Sustainable groundwater, because obviously they're all about surface water and not bleeding the groundwater dry.
Yes, and then we also have our Recovery Act monies that we could use a portion towards this project.
So in your mind, right now, this seems feasible?
Yeah, with the money that we have, because that we already have to go towards the project, if you wait another year, you're gonna have another 104,000 from Tracy. So, if you're using that money and allocating that money, and what you have worked into the rates, then if you go out and get that loan, then it's totally feasible.
And the benefit to the city for doing an expenditure like this is that we will not have to drill wells in the future. Is it?
Right, so it's preserving your groundwater, so that groundwater is there. It's that backup to your water system so that you can maintain the service to your residents. So it's an overall, it's a backup to your system. If something
Right.
happens to your wells, that's your backup.
So the ultimate big picture here from our perspective, trying to maintain a good community and provide, hey, you can flush your toilet every time. You can, the water coming out of your faucet is going to be treated. It's going to be as good as we can provide. This aligns with that really big picture.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's come in way under than what we thought. We were talking 10 million, 15 million, and now you're telling us that for 5 million, we can bring in surface water to this town. So I think that this is a very, very positive news.
Yeah, I think we got fortunate that we were able to gravity all the way into town before we dropped it off. That was a big kind of a win, I think. And then secondly, right now we've sized it at 18-inch diameter. That can give you up to 5 million gallons a day. So the other benefit, I think, is that in the future, if you could get more water from SSJID, you can go from 2.5 MGD all the way to 5 if we put in a 1.5 foot, 18-inch pipe. And if you want to go smaller pipe, you could get less water for less money. But I think, 18 inches, you spend a little bit of extra and it gives you some expansion capacity.
Yeah. And SSJID, they haven't approved this. Obviously, they need to approve it. So you need to talk to Peter Reichert and all these things.
And actually, Peter and Brandon are on our go-to meeting tonight.
Oh.
They were aware this was being presented. There's been conversations with the
Okay.
surface water treatment plant operating personnel also. So they're aware that we're reviewing this, but Pace's technical memo would need to go to them for that review. And again, it was important to staff to make sure that the council was on board on using that future parkland too.
I am on board, and I don't see any reason why we need to wait on this. I think we have the information that we can move forward, and I think we need to start those conversations, and we need to start finding a way to make this happen.
You want to say something?
The agreement we have with Tracy, is there a length of time that we need to give them as far as an out timeline with that? Are we obligated to a certain date with any contracts we have with them? Or is it a year-to-year, as-we-go kind of contract with them?
I do not recall an exit clause in there. I know that it was up until when the water treatment plant was going to be expanded to phase 2, but I don't recall there being an exit plan in there. I would assume if you gave them a year, they would appreciate it, and I think that we would know that well in advance.
Right, I just didn't
that
know
we
if there
were
was
going to
any
be able to give them that
Contractual
notice.
issues we have there.
Yeah.
I think this report is exactly what we were looking for. This is, it gives us options. It gives us options that are affordable, things that we can actually move forward on. I think the location is perfect. We got a master plan out there, but this works around that. So even if we continue with that master plan, this fits within that plan. So, I agree with Peter. Let's move forward on this. Whatever the next step is, get it to SSJID, have their review done, get their input, and start moving forward on this C proposal.
Option C, huh? Yeah, I concur.
Well, I'm just curious, though, I'd really like to know about the impact report, though. Whether or not we're gonna run into some kind of surprise that then kills our big dream. So I think it's critical that we know for a fact that we're not gonna run into that. So I have no issue with the C. I think it's a good idea as well as everyone else, but at the same time, I don't wanna sign up for something, get moved, ready to go, and then find out, boom, we got some kind of a problem here. So,
Is the alignment down Escalon Belota?
It is.
yeah, I have.
Are we in the roadway or are we in the right-of-way?
It would be on the east side. I think it's within the right-of-way. I think the old master planned alignment was in the same pathway, and that's what was in the existing CEQA document. To Tammy's point, we may have taken a turn about in the same location, but we'd have to look.
It took a turn at Lone Tree.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah, it took a turn at Lone Tree down to Brennan,
That doesn't
and then
eliminate
at the
problem
other
with
corner
some
of
kind
town.
Shrimp or some other bull crap.
So Andy, just in your perspective as a professional in this industry, the benefits to the city of doing something like this, outside of business or whatever, just personally, what can you tell us? Is this a good thing for the town to be able to do this?
Well, I mean, it seems like, look at what Manteca, Lathrop, Tracy, those are 3 just small examples. Everybody's trying to get to surface water. And then unfortunately, a lot of the cities I work with, they are starting to have these trace contaminant problems popping up. They're having to put in treatment systems at their wellheads. I mean, especially you look at kind of Southern California, just every single city's got massive filter vessels at every single well now. So absolutely, I think it's actually kind of a less risky, almost an insurance thing to do, to get this slightly more expensive water, but then it sort of takes away a lot of the risk. It de-risks the project for the city, in my opinion.
Who is responsible for the mandated state-regulated analysis on a regular basis on that water? It's coming from SSJID. Are they doing that at the plant before they put it in the pipe?
Absolutely,
Are
yeah.
we obligated in any way, shape, or form for any of that effort?
No,
Well, we would pay for the operations of the plant.
We pay for the water, but, okay.
Yeah, and that would be included in that.
We're constantly looking at rates, raising rates. And this is finally a rate increase so you can actually see something, as a result of the rate increase, and when you talk about an insurance policy, this gives us the insurance that we need to continue to be able to provide water to this city. If you have wells that are going offline and we have the opportunity to blend with surface water, it gives us a tremendous amount of control that we don't have right now. And I think people, as much as we hate raising rates and as much as people hate raising them or having to pay those rate increases, I think in the long run, this is something that has to be done. So let's get it.
Suggested and recommended by the state, which means it's going to be mandated in a future date.
Yeah, well,
It's just going down that route.
Save your wells as a backup, though.
Yeah.
You need those.
Well, the current well we're digging here is over $1 million for the well.
Oh, yeah.
What is that, 610 feet deep, so we can keep drilling wells, but without that surface water option, I think we're killing ourselves and we're setting ourselves up for failure down the road. And with the Groundwater Sustainability Act and everything that's going to come in with that, we don't know what the bureaucratic costs are going to be with that. So once that layer is on top of there, and we can start, or we're going to be required to charge for groundwater, that's going to be, that's going to make this look even more attractive.
Right.
So I think it's absolutely the right project at the right time to get moving on.
Yep.
Was that what you were looking for tonight, a consensus? What option?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any public comment, if you.
We can find out. Is there anyone in the public like to come up and speak this evening?
Jesus. Kurt Danziger, 389 Noni. Thank you, Andy. Another great report. Hopefully the city can use it. A couple of things that were brought up in the past that have been eliminated now is like blending. There was supposed to be a blending tank at some point. We don't need to do that anymore. It can go straight into the existing.
Yeah, it'll be treated water that we can bring straight into the distribution system. The blending is going to still occur in the Roosevelt tank at night. So SSJD water during the night would come through the distribution system and fill the Roosevelt tank, and it would blend with groundwater there, and it would head out. Most of the users on the north side of town will get only SSJD water, and the south side of town will get blended water.
So there's no valving configuration that needs to be set up to blend it?
No.
That's what I was asking. Winter times, you said that the pipe, a 20-inch pipe would hold 500,000 gallons.
About 250,000 gallons, yeah.
Justin, how much do we use a day in the winter? I don't know if he's there.
Justin, did you hear the question?
I think it's, I have
Matt,
to
yeah,
answer that.
Matt,
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
I was just wondering what the city's water usage, if you can recall it, in the winter is,
on a daily basis.
daily basis.
Yeah, we usually go down, it kind of varies. Right now, we're at 2.5, like what Andy says, and we'll go down to a 1.7-ish, closer to, 2 on a high demand time when it'll go up, but it definitely goes down quite a bit. Our biggest concern with the winter time was being able to discard that water that sets there when we need to.
Are we able to just use that water? Can we shut the wells down
Yeah,
and not
absolutely.
have that problem?
Absolutely, yes.
Couldn't we just put
And just, I looked at, you guys use 1,500 acre feet per year, so that's an average of 1.3 million gallons per day. So if you use 2.5 in the peak, it's probably a little bit less than 1.3 in the winter, and you just have to use about 0.25 per day to keep it fresh.
And so I don't think that ends up being a real issue. Lastly, I would go to sales to Tracy. One of the reasons I've been for this project all this time was you don't need all the water that we're allotted. We blend this water, there's still available water sales to Tracy to pay, hopefully not for rate increases, that we can put into this water system. If we use half the water in the summer and sell half the water still to Tracy, we got $50,000, a year from them. We can put that towards whatever you need to put them for and save the citizens some tax money.
That's a good question. Is that possible?
Yes,
You don't use it all, still sell some of it?
correct.
Okay,
And-
You wouldn't be able to take more than your allotted amount.
sure.
And I'm not sure where you got your rates, but back when we first went into this endeavor there, I think it was just over 2,000 acre feet we were allotted, and now it's up to almost 3,000?
No, we're still at the 2,000. The surface water plant has not gone to phase 2 at this
Phase
time.
two, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. And I always heard that Tracy would buy whatever we had.
And they have voiced that they would take more, yes.
So I don't think that's a problem if our water, I don't think our water would go bad in the winter, because we could sell it. And so I don't want to see people dumping water either. That just makes me nervous to even tell people that. So I think there's a way to sell and make money off of that with this system, and I'm all for it. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Kurt.
Kevin Abernathy, 2328 Jonathan Court. Interesting discussion. I really like option C, but the one thing that I haven't heard that I think is really important for council to take into consideration is, yes, we've mentioned Sigma. Escalon is part of the GSA. That's where the rubber meets the road. The days of everybody looking at water, we call it native water. I actually have staff that work with virtually every GSA that has a dairy farm or a community of dairy farms from San Joaquin County to Kern County. It's about a water savings account. Native water is your deposits. Pumping is your withdrawals. Every GSA in this state, this is a total game changer, and we use the term, we're basically distributing pain. Everybody's gonna have some pain. So with that, one thing that I would recommend to the council is find out where exactly you guys are gonna fit into your local GSA. If you have water, goes back to J.G. Boswell and the King of California. His beginning game in the 20s was his end game now, because water's worth money. It's just a recommendation.
Anyone else would like to speak? Council, anybody else?
I'm good.
I just want to say, I don't want to take credit for a lot of these good ideas because Tammy, who we enjoyed working together, Justin and Matt, they both came up, or all three of them came up with a lot of these great ideas. So thank you for that.
All right.
Thank you, Andy.
Then moving forward in this, Tammy, when will we commit? Is a commitment like tonight, or is it down the road, or when is it?
No. So tonight, with the council's direction, we'll submit this to SSJID for their approval. They'll evaluate the plans, ask any questions that they might have about the proposed plan, and make sure that it fits in within their operations. Once they would approve the plan, then we would start that process of looking at getting that right away, reviewing environmental documents and those kinds of things.
What happened to the $15 million project they were talking about? They said it could go as high as 15. How did it go from 15 to 5?
I'm not sure about a 15. I know that I had 8 million that I had put in when we were looking at the water rate study, and so I'm not sure. Difference could be, I think on the master plan of SSJID, it did talk about doing the water tank. It was a different area of the town.
It's a different project.
We thought we were
Yeah.
pumping. When we first got this thing, we thought it was big, huge pumps up at Dodds Road. Had to go get land, had to go secure the site, great big, huge pumps, and you're pumping through a pressure line. But instead, we got fortunate. They're up high. They've got a lot of residual pressure. We're gravitating down.
What's the fall from Dodge Road to here, do you know?
It's 100-foot elevation, but they have a minimum of 80 feet of head pressure at all times. So they have 180 feet, and your city's at about 120. So you got about 60 feet of positive pressure coming down.
Interesting.
Which is great.
Before, too, the water campus was supposed to be over by the barn. So we were still coming under the tracks. You're still putting a tank. You're still tying into the system there, and that.
And a well.
And the well. And the well, if I remember correctly, the well was 1.5 million, and then just to tie it into the existing system was another like $3.5 million.
Correct,
So
which is what drove the realignment of the pipeline.
Yeah.
Was because of those costs.
So this is much better.
If we're
much
gonna do something like this, then do we need the new well as well?
So we would still want to do the well 1A, but not well 11 that had been test drilled over on the other side of, on the northwest side of town.
And we have a low-interest loan for 1A,
Correct.
right? We have not secured any financing for 11.
No, 11 was kind of stepped away from back in 2009, I believe it was, 2008, 2009. We did the test well in that area, and then we kind of walked away from that, and we haven't explored it since that time.
Would the state still have low-interest funding similar to what we're using for the well?
Sure, and there's probably some funding potentially through some of the SIGMA, the groundwater funds that we could potentially apply for also.
Yeah, it just seems like a good time for this
Right.
project.
Yeah.
From a funding standpoint, plus the,
And you could use some of your Recovery Act funds to like jumpstart it, get that engineering while you go through and try to get the loan. Because, you know, going through the state for loans, it's a time-consuming process, as, you know, I've
Right.
done with well 1A, so it takes a process.
yeah, yeah. It all takes a process, doesn't it?
Yes,
So,
yes.
All right. No, I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we finished up?
Thanks.
Anybody,
Good job, Andy.
did we talk to anybody on the phone left? Anybody left in there want to talk about this? If not, we're gonna move on to number 8, discussion regarding temporary structures and carports.
Yeah, thank you.
Staff.
Thank you. This item was requested to be brought before the City Council for discussion by Mayor Alves and Mayor Pro Tem Legero. As a reminder, in order to process any ordinance amendments, advertisement in the local newspaper and public hearings at both Planning Commission and City Council are required prior to their adoption. The ordinance would become effective 30 days after adoption. This section is specific to Chapter 17.41195 of the Escalon Municipal Code, which was adopted, reviewed and adopted by both Planning Commission and Council last year in 2020, temporary structures. Do you have any questions or?
Let's go to the audience. Anybody out there would like to start this off? Come to the podium, give us your name, please.
Again, Kurt Danziger. It's premature. I'm not even sure why we're here talking about it. So maybe we could get a little bit more background before the audience has anything to say. Thank you.
If I may, I think the idea was to revisit the ordinance to see if there was any suggested changes or discussion to be had regarding, you know, whether there's any need to be changed, any changes to be made or suggested to the ordinance. That's
All right.
And this was just updated and changed in 2020.
Correct. Yes.
correct.
All right. Now, do we have somebody who'd like to come up and start off? You have your name, please?
Mayor Kevin Abernathy, 2328 Jonathan Court. May I approach the dais?
Of course.
The picture says 1,000 words.
Very good.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got something for staff.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to give you back this in case.
Oh, do you have the camera that you can put on the screen?
No,
We can't do that.
not unless we have an electronic file, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Temporary structures, 17-41195. In review of the minutes of the Planning Commission on August 13, 2019, regarding project 19705, the picture that you have in front of you and being passed around the audience, according to the meeting minutes, Ms. Romo explained the code does prohibit these structures. Also note that the fire marshal had no comments for the project. This project did not meet setback requirements nor fire code. Commissioner Danziger stated that rather than approve the variance, due to the high number of illegal structures currently existing, this issue was referred to City Council to determine if these structures were acceptable, rather than the Planning Commission approving them individually by application. The motion was made and seconded to deny the continual use permit and the variance, and was sent per instructions back to the City Council. That leads us to October 7th, 2019. The matter was heard before the council. According to the meeting minutes, again, Ms. Romo presented the item to council. At the time, Mayor Swift inquired as to why the Planning Commission denied the project, and Ms. Romo explained that they denied the project for a few reasons: no setback requirements, proposed structure being metal, as they prefer structures to be of like material to keep up the aesthetics of the neighborhood. They were concerned with the potential of the deterioration of the neighborhood. As well, they felt the council found metal carports acceptable, that Escalon Municipal Code should be updated to reflect its acceptance. The motion was moved in second to reverse the Planning Commission's decision to deny approval. The council also at that time, very important point, directed staff to move forward with amending the current ordinance and reflect the acceptance of metal carports because they were temporary structures, asking that the language be included in the amendments to require the structures to be permitted, engineered, address storm runoff issues, and the motion carried unanimously, referred to Minute Order 5919. Even though it was the explicit direction of City Council to make appropriate amendments to the ordinance, based on the precedents that was set by the picture in front of you, 19705, today's current guidance to apply for a variance is still based on code that prohibits planning from approving, since staff did not make the appropriate modifications, again, based on the precedents that was set with Project 19705. Current code does not allow for them to be approved. I might note, the fees to apply for a variance to planning, $995. When denied, I can appeal, or someone can appeal to the council within 10 days. $650. Exorbitant fees, in my opinion. Then only to find yourself, if you do make it through those processes, back here at City Hall, applying for a building permit, another $500. Right now, we're at $2145. To go through a process that should have been solved with direction to staff on October 7th of 2019 by the City Council. The end results, the structures remain. So is this just an opportunity to collect fees? I would recommend that the city seriously consider, council seriously consider suspending current and future abatement orders or issues until which time staff can appropriately bring back to council, including a robust public process, including city stakeholders, i.e. residents, for approval, and providing appropriate language in the ordinance to give city and staff flexibility, again, based on the precedents that was established by the council's approval on October 7th, 2019, Project 19705, Order 5919. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd love to take any questions or continue on with public comment and bring us back up.
I have a question. You were cited, and do you have a picture of your situation?
I do.
Yeah, present that to the council, please.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yeah.
this would not be the appropriate time to discuss any particular notice of violation,
I think this points out to
citation,
the
or other.
people, if this points out to the council how far from we've come from this to where he's at. I think it's worth looking at. We're here to discuss it. Let's discuss it.
Yeah, well,
We're not
there's a
gonna change
couple.
any rules.
There's a couple issues that I have to indicate to City Council here, which is, actually, as the citizen indicated, this council might actually be in a position in an administrative appeal to be reviewing a denial from the planning commission of a particular project. This body could only sit in that position, in that quasi-judicial role that the courts say it, when you sit up here as a finder of fact to make some decisions. If you're unbiased and open and unbiased, that cannot happen. The courts have said that cannot happen if this matter has been presented to the city council prior to that. So what I'm saying is if information from a particular case is discussed here today, and then at some point in the near future, it's before you again on an appeal, this body has effectively recused itself or needs to step out of that, which would deny the applicant's ability to actually appeal before the city council. So what I'm trying to do is just indicate we cannot be talking about a particular case that is pending before either, whether it's before the police department or whether before it's code. The city council cannot direct staff, whether it's city manager, planning, the police chief, to discuss or, take any particular action, again, whether it's a criminal action or a code action that we have going here. So as wonderful as it would be to take care of some issues tonight, I implore the city council not to discuss the particulars regarding any current action against Mr. Aberforth at this time. Haberner. I got it right before. And let the process play out regarding his particular situation. Obviously, it's on the calendar, it's on the agenda to discuss generally whether there should be amendments to the ordinance, but any particular case should not be discussed before council tonight. Thank you.
Let me ask you this. So is this a citation, a code enforcement citation? Or is it just, how did you get notice that there was a violation, and how did that process initiate?
There is a notice of abatement at this point that has not, and the notice of a nuisance that needs to be abated.
Based on this ordinance?
Based on this ordinance, that is correct. And he's still I believe, within his time period to go with the administrative process at this time. So it's open and should not be discussed here.
So can we have a discussion, because I think I see where Mr. Abernathy is coming from. Generally speaking, we have this, which we know that we have allowed, and I'm juxtaposing this versus what the ordinance is saying. So can we have a discussion on, this is allowed, but yet according to the ordinance, it's not allowed. He was given a waiver, and I think the idea, not a waiver or variance. I believe that this ordinance was supposed to be written in order to allow this.
Absolutely, that can be discussed. I'll indicate to you guys, to the council, that I have not reviewed, this is the first time I heard of this previous appeal that came before the council. I would love to look back at the meeting minutes. I'm glad, it's been brought up.
I guess
I just don't have any information. I don't think staff has information.
Would this be a situation where we need to direct the planning commission to review these ordinances before they come to us, or is it up to us as a city council to drive this bus?
I think what's happening here is it's up to us, because we would ask any ordinances dealing with planning, we go back to planning and we say, you give us the suggestions regarding what needs to be changed. This is what we think it should be changed. Please give the council direction on the changes. So the planning commission has a say. They get to help this body, draft the ordinance.
Well, then maybe that might be the best tack, because again, I'm looking at this, which we've allowed, I'm looking at this, which, it doesn't allow this. So this is probably got to be changed to allow this for consistency's sake. And if that means it starts with the planning commission or whatever, that's, what's your advisement on discussing?
I got a couple comments real quick. So with this particular photo that you brought up,
Yes, sir.
this was a neighbor of mine. He used to live around the corner, and I actually showed up to the planning commission meeting as a city council member, which I'm not supposed to do, I guess. And I sort of advocated that this be allowed. And I also agree with you, the fees are exorbitant. I think paying, thousands of dollars just to make your case to build something on your own property. And so I agree with you on that. I I respect what Mark said, and I appreciate his call on this, that if you're going through the process, though, it would probably be appropriate to go through that. But I do want to make another comment that this ordinance, I think, should be amended to allow these kind of things so that this doesn't come up again, if I'm allowed to say that. So we should be consistent, and if we need to change the ordinance so that people don't have to go to the planning commission, they don't have to come to city council to build a temporary structure like this, that's what I'm in favor of.
In October, we had this meeting, and I thought that direction was supposed to be made.
Right.
It didn't get made.
Okay.
And that's why we're here tonight.
Right.
And I don't think it's unfortunate that him or anyone else has to go through this. I think the council was pretty clear on it, that we thought that there was better things to do, and these things were a little overdone.
Right, so the ordinance just didn't get changed the way we wanted it?
That's what it sounds, that's what it looks like to me.
So what, I'm just trying to get a clear picture of what did happen and what didn't happen.
Well, I didn't see it being changed the way we thought we wanted it changed. Maybe you can help me out here, anybody else that says it different.
Well, I'm looking at the picture, I'm looking at the ordinance, and I can see how, I mean, for this to be legal,
Exactly.
there's gotta be something inaccurate with this. And you're right, we're walking a very fine line tonight. So basically, what we need to know is where can we go with this?
I think we
Stop,
suppress
you know,
it
put the
well.
brakes on everything for a minute, and where can we go with this to make sure that we're consistent?
I think it would be great for this to go to Planning Commission with a little direction on, could please review this, especially in light of the October 7th, 2019 direction from council, and let the Planning Commission come back with their suggested edits to this. And I have no doubt that staff would withhold certain enforcement actions pending this review. I mean, if it's under review, it makes sense. Staff's not about to go out and try to, do fines or take enforcement action on something while this is.
Right. I think, we should, if, once the public hearing's over, I think the appropriate action at this point would be to put a stay on the enforcement of the ordinance at this point until it goes through the appropriate channels and comes back, and then we can address it. I think that sounds like.
Yeah, Mark, and I agree with that, and I would make the argument that in terms of what direction, we would suggest to the Planning Commission, basically, I'm very confident that what we did was to allow this, okay? And therefore, change or work on the ordinance so that this is allowed. So that therefore, you're right, you take that back to the Planning Commission, okay, what do we need to do with this to make this okay? This kind of stuff, to make it okay. So yeah, that, to me, that'd be the direction that I'd be giving them, as well.
Kurt, you want to make a comment? Because you were on there then.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
I was on the planning commission the night this came before us. I drove around, and if you look at that picture, there's a cutout on the gutter system that this thing is up against the house. This whole situation was created by the city council. Been discussing this matter for decades about these illegal structures and where they are in the city. The mayor has one, they're all over the place. We discussed several times, what are we going to do about it? I came up at one meeting and said, well, why don't we start an education system for real estate agents and let them know what a temporary structure is, and that when that landlord left, they take it with them. We kicked that kind of stuff around. Ed came to a meeting at the Einhorn building with his camera after he'd done a bike ride around the city. He had 44 pictures of these things. This has been on the agenda a lot. This created a problem. There's no setbacks. It's a fire hazard. You have no idea what's in there. And here you are embracing it full-blown because you made the mistake of sending it back to the Planning Commission, who reviewed it and said, all right, it was inferred that there are setbacks there to protect the homeowners next door and the primary structure. So those setbacks were brought in because of the fire code and building code. These aren't just arbitrary ideas. And those got put in here. They were discussed. You all had an opportunity to ask questions. You agreed on it. And that's why this is here, not this. This is wrong. If this were the case, my neighbor, who's watching right now, would love to do that to my side fence. And I've already told them, if and when you go to a planning commission, I'll be there. I'm not going to be an anonymous complaint. I'm going to be an obvious complaint. You know, you don't need it. There's no need for these things. There's plenty of storage places around, and half of these in town aren't for RVs. They're for other people's junk. So I'm not really enamored by this thing here. I think that's a fire hazard, and I think you guys approved it. That's a problem. You know, if the insurance company took a look at that, if there was a fire, they said, well, who would have approved that? Well, the city council did. I don't know if the city's liable for that, but I'm sure they'd look for a way to get out of paying for it. Before you send this back, make sure you've redlined this, what you want to take out of here. Don't just say, go review it, and then we'll go ahead and pass whatever we want. I just want you to get it straight. You had it backwards, Robert. The ordinance was already there, not allowing these. This came along, he filed for a variance, he was rejected, and then he came here, and you guys approved it. So you sent it back to get the ordinance updated, we updated it, we reviewed it, you reviewed it, it got passed, and now you want to change it again and blame somebody else for it. Well, don't. I think we ought to keep it just the way it is.
Okay.
I don't have a
Your
problem.
minutes are up. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I have a comment in response. Kurt, I really appreciate the feedback, and I know you think these things through and you read the ordinance and you know what you're talking about. From my perspective, up here, setbacks, we talk about setbacks so often, and you talked about this particular structure being a fire hazard to the primary residence. So my thinking on that.
It could be.
It could be. To me, in the interests of private property and liberty, that is up to that homeowner. If they want to build a structure next to their property that's a fire hazard to their primary residence, I don't want to get in the way of that. I know people don't like the look of them, and it may inhibit somebody's view. I understand that, but that's the side that I err
So
on.
it's okay to have a fire hazard next to your neighbor?
Well, there's, you know.
Forget the neighbor's point of view.
It's
and
not
your
right next to the
rights.
neighbor's house, that's all I'm saying, so.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you for your time.
That's enough, okay. Well, we'll be,
All right, so that leaves us in a position where we're thinking about putting it back to the planning commission to review the ordinance and bring it back to us for our review. Is that where we're at?
Yes, Your Honor, if I may, just to see if there's any other public comments left out there.
All right.
I have a question
well,
before that.
Let's
Okay.
have him go. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Robert Granberg. I reside at 2324 Jonathan Court and have been there for 22 years. I'm here in support of Mr. Abernathy. He's a friend of ours. We've known the family, Abernathy and the Spears family, the whole time we've been in Escalon. I became aware that there was an anonymous complaint about this temporary structure, and it got me to thinking, you know, this is by Jonathan Court, by its name, it's a cul-de-sac. So who comes down that street? The people who live there, and an occasional FedEx truck or a UPS truck or Amazon truck and trash trucks.
The cops.
And, oh, yeah, we see you there occasionally. We appreciate it. We appreciate your presence. So why would anybody be concerned about a nuisance on our street unless it's someone that lived there? So I went around the neighborhood on Saturday. In fact, I posed a question to our neighbors, and I have the signatures here. My question was, and this is right out of the municipal code. As a current homeowner and resident, well, the statement isn't, but the gist of it is. As a current homeowner and resident on Jonathan Court, I hereby state that the above referenced temporary structure does not affect the aesthetics of the neighborhood, nor does it present a nuisance. Because that's the essence of the ordinance. We're trying to protect neighborhoods from declining and creating a nuisance. Everyone signed it. They're in support of Mr. Abernathy's carport structure, and I'll leave this with you. I was going to talk about what you've all been saying and rehashing the Planning Commission and the City Council's decisions, but I think what it comes down to, and my attorneys tell me this all the time, it's there's words that can be said in contracts and agreements, but what was the intent? I think the intent was to allow Escalon City residents to live autonomously and to do what they want to do with their property. You've seen an example of someone who did that, and they were allowed to do that. And we can debate whether it's a nuisance or brings down the neighborhood, but it is that autonomy and that essence of living in Escalon. That's why we live here. This is a small town. We like the way it's a community, and we want to keep it that way. And that's watching out for each other and supporting each other and not being heavy-handed from government. We have enough of that at the state and federal level, right? I think we can all agree on that. So I would just reiterate that the current ordinance as written, I don't believe meets the intent of what council directed because of that example. So it needs another look. And I think, in closing, I just reiterate, Escalon's a nice place to live, you know? We live here because of its size and its community. I would hope that the ordinance can align your direction with what the residents are seeking, and that is to live in this community and be free to do what they want to do. I mean, there's tons of these structures around. Some of them we like, some of them we don't like, but it's still Escalon. I think a good point was brought up from this gentleman here that maybe what we need to do is communicate better with our residents. If we have an ordinance and people are not aware of it, we're going to end up here again and again and again. So I would suggest that maybe, I don't know, I'm not familiar with the Chamber of Commerce, but when property changes hands, maybe they get a package in the mail that says, "Welcome to Escalon. This is our community and this is what we expect. These are our rules, and we welcome you to be a part of that community, to participate in our community, to make it a great place to live, and not end up like another one of our, I won't name them, neighboring San Joaquin Valley towns that decided they wanted to, you know, do things under pressure, and now they've lost their identity. We don't want to lose our identity here. I'm speaking for myself. I think maybe you do as well because you serve at the pleasure of the citizens. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Very
If
much.
I could leave these?
Yeah.
Please.
I think it would be best if
Thank you.
that's actually returned and he could give it to the planning commission if necessary, or bring it before the council if it's back before the council.
We know that all the neighbors signed. That's good enough. That's fine. We got it.
In this ordinance, it doesn't recommend, or it doesn't reference a height that I can see in there. Is there a height restriction on how tall this structure can be, or how long this structure can be?
Well, you've set the precedence right there.
We have another section of the code for accessory buildings. It's been 15 feet. They usually don't go taller than that. I've never had anybody, I don't think anybody's gone taller than 15 feet. But that's what's currently probably being used out of accessory structures.
I make one comment real quick. So it's not that somebody puts up a structure for their trailer or something like this. It's the fact that it's written into the city law, right? And that the entities in the city, the planning commission, the law enforcement, they're enforcing what's on the books. And then they bring it here to the council, and then we want to make changes and do different things. And it just creates this sort of weird tension, like, we're not on the same page. So we definitely need to get on the same page with this. And I think that we have a direction on how to do that, and that'll eliminate some of these problems where if it's not a code violation, then we won't have to enforce it, and people can just go ahead and live their lives. I think that's kind of the direction that we are moving at.
Yeah, and by the way, Kirk made some very good points, and one of them, I think, is we're looking at this, we're seeing some things that don't quite add up. How can we get this to the planning commission with our little notes and scribbles so that they know, okay, what council are you really talking about? Give it to Tammy tomorrow, or what's?
You could give it to me.
Yeah, because you're right, I don't want to give this back to the planning commission, figure it out, and they're going to go figure out what, so at least if they know where we're coming from, so we can get that to you tomorrow?
Yeah, if you have ideas now, you can either discuss them. We can table this to the next meeting if you need more time to review the ordinance. That way you have more time to look at what it currently is and provide red lines if you want. Either way is fine. And then, of course, we do schedule public hearings, and so it's advertised in the newspaper that we're going to discuss this specific, and it goes into our Escalon newspaper.
It's up to you. Like I say, I don't know I can get you mine tomorrow, and Kirk also brought up a couple serious considerations that, yeah, they really got to get addressed in this too. So I don't know what everybody else thinks, but to move
Well,
this
you got
along.
this to go off of. That's your thing.
Well, that's what, yeah. that's
Yeah,
what I'm
this
saying.
is what we agreed to.
Yeah.
Okay? So that would be what it is you're looking at. So if you're gonna go away from that, then what are you gonna do with this one?
Well, it's all together. You know, make this match this.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But we need to also write down our red line, our points of where we think they might be inconsistent so that, you know.
You know, the
commission
thing
has
I
something to work
considered
with,
about
at least.
this was public safety, structural safety, stuff like that. Or if it was a chemical problem or something along those lines.
I concern myself with what else is gonna be in there other than an RV.
Well, and that's,
That's a concern I've got,
Well,
significant
there-
concern.
well, there's plenty of things you can put in there.
What's tough about this stuff, I know we always have the 3-foot setbacks. And, you know, I've been in plenty
We
of
have 5-foot
yards
setbacks,
and
by the way.
you can have the building in 3 feet and you walk in the backyard and there's junk everywhere. You're still not gonna get in as a firefighter, you know, because there's so, I don't know how to handle that. I mean, it's a tough one.
Well, first of all, the word temporary structure is ludicrous in itself because you could put a house as a temporary structure, right? You can go in there and excavator and take it out, right? So a temporary structure, it's so ambiguous at this point. I'm concerned, I think we do need to bring it back. We need to send it maybe back to Planning Commission with our thoughts, see what we can fix this, bring it back, and then we can amend this ordinance to fit the current standard that we're looking for, right? And it's going to be vastly different than what it was, because this was a violation, and this should not be a violation anymore, probably not what the gentleman got up to talk about either. So my other question is, the direction for Mr. Abernathy, is he going to go to Planning Commission, and then what's he going to do now for his thing?
So since you guys have indicated that you're going to amend the ordinance,
Yeah.
this would be given a stay. So
Okay.
we're not going to act on anything until the ordinance is completed.
So he can continue to do what he wants?
Correct, at this time. Yeah.
Until we get this corrected, are we accepting permit requests for structures that are similar to the one in this picture? Or are we gonna just tell them to hold off until we're done with this process? Because if we don't go this way, or we make changes and they approve something that's not within the change, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
So that means that we're gonna put a stop on construction, in my opinion, until this is hammered out as well, for anybody who wants a permit.
That would be
That's up to you.
correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
nobody's gonna pull a prince,
Well,
it doesn't matter.
let's
I
not
don't
hold
think
on to
that you
these
can-
forever. Let's get them to
I don't think that you
staff.
can enforce, you can authorize a building permit that doesn't meet the current code. So we wouldn't be able to authorize any building permit that may be equivalent to the picture that was presented until the code has been changed and is in effect.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing this, we got a little homework tonight. Red line what we have questions about, get this to staff ASAP so that the process can start ASAP.
Yeah, and I want to say last thing to what Mr. Granberg brought up. Do I think these temporary structures look good? Do I think they look nice as opposed to just a regular house, you know? No, I don't. I don't think they necessarily make a neighborhood look better. But that's not the issue. The issue here is letting people and not getting in the way of what people want to do with their private property. If they want to live autonomously, you know, if they want to put their RV in there, I think that looks better than if it was on the street. I think that they should be able to put their RV in there as opposed to going paying $100 a month
Yep.
to store it. That's what it comes down to me, okay? So do I think these structures look good? This one looks nice, but not all of them look good. But to me, it's a larger issue, right? It's complicated, but that's what I would say.
Okay, so we're in agreement that basically we're gonna have it go back to the planning commission for review, and we're gonna add our suggestions and see if we, meantime, we will suspend all actions on these types of structures until we resolve this issue with the ordinance. Is that where we're at?
Get them in your
Can we
notes,
just-
don't take all day.
Can we ask, I'm not sure if there was anybody online that had anything to say.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Are they talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, we still can't hear you.
Can they like chat right in? Do they have a thing?
Well,
Yeah, he could write in the chat area. We still can't hear you, Mr.
what's his name?
Tristano?
He's an attorney,
Correct.
yes.
But we still.
Yes,
There you
There we
go.
go.
okay. I was going to say I will email my comment if I can't speak. Yes, I'm Craig Tristo, counsel for Mr. Abernathy. I agree and support with the path that the council is taking. I think that is prudent. One thing I'd like to bring to the council's attention is the process in which, you know, these things are apparently being ordered. And I'd like to go to it because one of the standards that is faced by a city council when something's questioned is whether or not there was a fair hearing. And you know, there are some issues here with respect to this matter in particular, but I'm assuming would be to most matters in general, and it will be stayed pending your review. But in this instance, a fair hearing requires due process. And we have in this case, an instance where one form of a notice of abatement was provided to a residence, and then a different notice of abatement and order was provided to a person who requested a copy of it. And it's not a proper procedure generally for that to occur, because how is the citizen supposed to know what they're going to be objecting to when they go to the appeal? You're preparing for order X, but you're actually meeting order Y when you go to the appellate hearing. One thing I would also recommend be considered when amending this municipal code is addressing non-conforming structures and that they're to be grandfathered in. What appears to be happening generally is if a house is being sold, staff will identify it and then look at pictures and potentially flag it for not being code compliant. That doesn't involve actually speaking with the owner, going and reviewing the property in person, and those are things that should be occurring. So I would recommend that your amended statute provide for non-conforming structures and that they be grandfathered in. And if you need a definition, it's a structure that was legally constructed prior to the adoption of an ordinance. So you guys have several of these structures out there now. It would be grossly unfair to just make some of them illegal. So I strongly recommend considering a non-conforming structure clause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so anybody left out there that want to speak on this matter before we move on it? Nobody on the phone, nobody in the audience. We're going to move on it, and we're going to bring it back to the council, and I believe we're going to agree on the fact that we're going to send it back to the planning, and hopefully we can get this straight this time, and we'll work on it from our perspective as well. We'll submit, and the council will then hear it back from the planning commission, and we'll hopefully have an ordinance we all can live with.
So point of clarification, I'm going to be receiving red lines from you in the next few days.
Yes.
We'll get that prepared and move towards planning commission, followed by
Correct.
council.
That's correct. And in the meantime, there's a stay on any sort of abatements.
Correct.
With regards to this issue.
Sure.
Not other issues that we have on town going on.
Okay.
And this should be by motion, Your Honor.
All right, then. Let's have a motion to the effect that what I just stated. How's that?
I would make a motion that we would put a stay on projects happening right now pertaining to this ordinance, that the ordinance would go back to planning commission with the city council's adjustments, red lines for consideration, and come back to us for final approval.
All right. Does anybody, let me help you a little bit on that. I don't think it's projects. I think it's current non-compliant buildings that are being abated currently would be a stay on them, and then what you said was right, and then we would do what you said.
So moved.
All right, so we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Carries 5-0. Staff, you have your direction, and we'll try to get some information back to you from us individually, showing what we think is the path we want to go down.
Email's fine, put it in my box, drop it off, come in and tell me verbally, and I'll write it down. I just want to provide all those options just to make sure everybody's able to get that information in.
Okay, now, let's go to the last item, if I can find my paperwork. Consider amending the budget for fiscal year 21-22. Staff.
Mayor and council, included in your agenda packet is the amendment of the budget for fiscal year 21-22 based on staffing modifications. The budget for fiscal year 21-22 was adopted on June 21st of 2021. Due to recent resignations, the city council has requested and authorized reallocation of positions that impact the budget financially. The city council received the resignation of the city manager on August 16th. The current city manager is also the finance director, HR administrator, and city clerk. At the August 23rd, 21 meeting, the city council authorized staff to recruit a city manager and finance director. The finance director position is not currently allocated in the budget. Therefore, the staff has amended the budget to allocate the finance director and remove the management analyst position. Staff has also adjusted the budget to accommodate an interim city manager and modified the city manager's salary. These adjustments affect the general fund and will also affect the enterprise funds based on cost allocation for finance and management staff. In their staff report are the highlighted changes that amended the budget, both decreases and increases are in there. There were a couple other minor changes in regards to the transit budget for a CalPERS correction, capital outlay increase for the new audio equipment here in the council chambers, and then I did increase the SLUSA fund, which was a vehicle carryover from the prior fiscal year. No changes were made to revenues. With these changes to the budget, the general fund deficit has gone from $361,000 to $410,000, a deficit increase of $48,700. The general fund reserve remains above the minimum 33% at 36.1%. The general fund summary sheet, fund analysis sheet, expenditure sheet, and updated organizational information are attached to the staff report. Therefore, staff is recommending the city council amend the city budget for fiscal year 21-22 as presented.
All right, gentlemen, any comments?
I'm good.
I think these are things we need to do in this situation.
Okay.
I move to approve.
Don't we have to little input from out there? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but we need the input, because I know Mark's gonna give me a hard time if I don't do it. Okay. So those in the audience, if you have some input, let's have it, please. If not, we'll move on. Okay, we're gonna go to the phones. Anybody on the phones would like to have input? Okay, so now we can go back to council for a vote.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And we'll go to to council communications, I believe we're at.
Correct.
Let's start off with Mr. Crummage.
Thank you, Mayor Alves.
You're welcome.
Some good discussion tonight about some important things. Talked about water pipeline. Great discussion, great presentation. We talked about people being able to do what they want on their property. You know, I'm figuring that out. It's a touchy subject. Great discussion. Last thing I'll say again is thank you, Tammy, for all your hard work over the last 8+ years. I don't think we can, have enough words to say how you've helped us through different scenarios and different challenges and navigated, especially dealing with the pesky city council. So thank you so much, and good luck on your new endeavor. And also, congratulations to Dominique for stepping into a big role, filling some big shoes. I'm excited about the new finance director. I'm very excited about the future and the direction this town is going. I think there's a lot of positive energy right now, despite what's going on in the world. And I think that we're going to continue to make this town a nice place to live for generations. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Councilman Bellinger.
Echo the sentiment on the PACE project. The nice numbers that came in, definitely lower than I was expecting to see. That was nice to see that, and with several options there for us to consider. Other than that, Tammy, thank you for all the hard work. I know I haven't been up here very long, but thank you for all the help you've provided me in the short time I've been here. And then on a personal note, I want to call out my father. It's his birthday today. He's 80.
Happy birthday!
Then I'm good, thank you.
All right, Councilman Swift.
You didn't want him to talk?
No.
No? Yeah, I'm going to echo that same sentiments. You know, Tammy, if you really think about it, you know, when you started, we were just trying to get ourselves solvent, sustainable, you know, so we could even survive as a city. If you've taken under your leadership, you've taken us all the way from there to where we're planning and doing projects that are going to benefit generations of people in Escalon that haven't even been born yet. And I think that's just fantastic. And and I tell you, years down the road, it's going to be these times right now, under your leadership, that, I tell you, I just don't think people are going to be able to understand the impact. They will. You're going to be sorely missed. We're all going to miss you like crazy. I know if anybody's capable of, filling those shoes, it's going to be Dominique. But like I say, just as long as we can use you as a resource, there's something special about this town. People want to keep it a small town, and a lot of people in other towns don't understand that. Well, what's the big deal? Why don't you just build? And you've been able to take that advisement from the council and from the community, and you've been able to keep this town a special place throughout your tenure. And again, it's going to be like that for years to come because of the many things that you've been able to do as city manager. And I don't think we can ever thank you enough. I know you've got a staff that is going to pull together like crazy. I mean, I remember years ago, this staff, you could not use the term family for the staff. The PD was its own little world, and everybody worked differently, blah, blah, blah. Now, you've nurtured a family environment for everybody, and it makes a big difference in terms of a city functioning and functioning well. So again, there's no way we can thank you enough for everything that you've done. Dominique, I think you're going to do great.
No pressure.
One thing I'm going to be asking the council, however, and I think Peter and I touched upon it the other day, is, we have an interim city manager, okay, we're going to have an interim finance director. The next step now, as a council, is for us to decide, what do we want to see long-term in a city manager in that position at this point? We're restructuring things, with separate positions, right? We have a finance director for the first time in 10 years. Our entire way we're structuring the staff is going to be different. And I think it would do us some good to have some coaching with that. We've done that before with Henry Hasling coming in, Mike Harden coming in with the police department. And I would just like to get a consensus to go to the next step now and get an individual who's been around the block a few times that can help us coach our way through what do we want to see for our city manager for the next several years. And it's only going to help Dominique as well, okay? Because it's going to make a really clearly defined set of bullet points. Here's what we want to see. And I think we also need to be on the same page on it. We can get some names out there in terms of people who can help coach us in this process. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think you're talking about a long-term vision, a long-term game plan, something that's going to help the interim city manager, Dominique, with her role, city finance director, the police chief, superintendent, Justin, get everybody on the same page with what the direction is and how we're going to move forward into this new chapter. So yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, you done?
We okay with that?
Is that a consensus from the council?
What was it? Was it a motion or something? or
No,
what?
it's just a consensus to go to the next step now.
To explore
Yeah.
obtaining an individual for coaching.
So we get a clearly defined set of goals and objectives and
So
expectations.
we will go out and hire a consultant?
For a city manager position, yeah, not a firm, but an individual like we've done before with Henry, with Hardin.
Like a mentor?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Except for, to work with the council to
Yeah.
define what you guys are looking for out of your
So for
city
communication
management.
purposes? Hey, it couldn't hurt.
I
We
mean-
definitely don't communicate as well as we should at times.
Yeah. So,
All right,
okay,
that works.
You got my vote.
I'm seeing a consensus from the council.
All right.
Thank you.
yeah.
Are we finished?
Yes, done, that's it.
You've been finished. Okay. Pro Tem Legero.
I will echo everything that's been said about the PACE presentation. I think I've made my position clear on moving forward on that. It's a long time coming. You know, the numbers were all over the place. Multi-million-dollar project is now attainable, and I think that's fantastic. And I think that's part of the long-term strategy, the long-term planning that we need to engage in as council members, just like the council did when they bought into the surface water treatment plant. So I think this is the next step in that, and actually having that surface water usable for the city of Escalon. Good discussion on that. And Kirk's point's well taken, that we don't have to take it all, and we can continue to sell what we don't use. And that allotment, you know, with phase 2 could increase as well. So I think it's a win-win, and it really provides for the future of this city. For Tammy, one of the most important things as a council member is to have a city manager, to have a staff that you can trust. And I don't think there was ever a single day or an issue that ever came up to where we ever doubted what you told us. You told us things that we didn't want to hear sometimes, but it was honest. And that quality that you brought to this job, to me, was the most important. We've interviewed a lot of city managers before you answered the call or are pleading with you to actually take the spot, you know, so many years ago. And, you know, when you're interviewing people, you get that feeling, you know, can I trust this person? Is this person just here as a stepping stone, moving on to the next career? Are they going to just tell me what they think I want to hear? Or are they actually going to be honest with us and keep us from making bad decisions? Henry was that way, and I think you brought that to the table, and for that, I very much appreciate all that you've done for the city, for us as council members, try and give us the best information and the most honest information that you could give us on any issue that came up. So, I really appreciate that and what you brought to the table. Dominique, that's the one quality that I'm looking for. And people like to surround themselves with yes people, you know, whatever you want, you're so smart, you're so great, whatever. We want the truth. You know, if we're about to make a boneheaded decision, you let us know. That I wouldn't do that if I were you, you know, and that's all we can ask, because that keeps us on the straight and narrow. Sometimes we can think of, you know, we've got the answer and we don't. So just continue with that. I think you're stepping in to a very dynamic position with a lot of things going on, and I think you're totally capable of handling it. I think you've worked for an excellent city manager for a number of years, and I think you continue on with what Tammy was doing for the city, and I think we're going to be just fine. So thank you for taking on that role as well. Lastly, I agree with Peter. We want people to be able to use their property to the maximum extent that they want to. There are limits, and it's finding that balance and finding those limits that don't interfere with the neighborhood, don't interfere with public safety, blight, things like that. So, you know, as we move forward with ordinances, we always try and find that balance. And sometimes it takes an ordinance change and then to see how it is actually implemented and the impact that it has for people out in the community. And when something comes to our attention that, hey, maybe this isn't right, or maybe this wasn't what the intention was, we need to look at it. And I think that's what we're doing here. So we move forward, we take a look at it, see what we can do to make it work for what's really happening out in the community, not some random ordinance, you know, that we may have gotten from another city and just implemented it. This is where our job is to try and tailor that ordinance to what is really happening in the community. And I know this ordinance was dealt with, came up when we were talking about sheds in people's backyards. So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, and it's constant. So anytime there's an issue with an ordinance, we look at it and we try and make whatever adjustments to best fit the community, you know, as a whole. So I appreciate the conversation. Thank you for bringing the issue to our attention. I was here for the other one, you know, so I know exactly what you're saying. So we'll see where we go from here. But I think we got some direction and we can go forward on it. And thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it.
Jeff, you want to make a comment on the skate park program?
Oh, sure. Peter and I did meet with a couple of the board members from the Park Foundation, with Tom Murphy and Mike Sipes, and had a good conversation with them. I think everybody is on the same page that in order to see this skate park built, it's going to take a fixed budget and then build to that budget. And we gave them some directions that we would like to see before committing any funds. But I think if we can get this on the agenda at the next meeting, we can have a good discussion about what they were able to find out, what they were able to work out with their builder, and we can actually have a good discussion and probably get some direction at that time how to move forward. So I'm asking for it to be on the next agenda.
I would second that.
I'll third that.
All right. Thank you.
So is this a motion we're doing right now, or?
Just asking.
Yeah,
Put it on the
just for
agenda.
this, yeah, we're
All
good.
right, all right.
All right. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, good feedback on everybody. Tammy, when you took the job, I thought you were crazy. And I told you at the time, you gotta be nuts. But you took it anyway, and you survived a lot of hurricanes. There's been times I may have seemed hard on you, but it's information I need. Sometimes I get in a little rant. I didn't mean it personal, but I'm glad you hung in there and did the best you could. Dominique, same question. Are you crazy? It's a tough job, but it's one of those situations where if you want to do it, I can't stop you. Good luck. All right.
Thank you.
Pace.
It's encouraging.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't want to sit here and give you bad information. Pace. I've never been a big fan of the idea of the water pipeline because of the cost was just out of control. This is the first time we've had a real look at something that makes any sense at all. But I'm kind of apprehensive about some of the things that could happen on the way to Disneyland. So let's hope we don't run into the Wicked Witch. All right? And let's see here. I'm glad everyone did come down tonight. It shows a good community support for issues that are important to us. Whether I agree or disagree, I'm glad you're here because it's the balance we need anyway to get to where we need to go. I think tonight we learned a lot, and I think that somehow we need to communicate a little bit better. Maybe that would help the situation when it wouldn't got to this point. We talked this evening about getting a mentor or someone along those lines, and I think that's a good idea. But I want to emphasize that that individual, as well as mentoring, needs to let everyone know on this staff that they could follow up or go up the line, and they should be given that opportunity, and as well as an opportunity to explore what goes on in those other positions while they're here. In case we run into another situation, hopefully that doesn't happen, somebody doesn't get hurt or have to move. But this way we have people, it's kind of like in the bullpen. You got another pitcher. So we need to focus on that in terms of our next few years. Let's keep everybody in the loop of what's going on, so if by some horrible thing something happens to one of our best pitchers, we got a backup.
Right.
All right, and then basically, this thing about the carports is it's a touchy item. A lot of people like them. A few people that I know. I don't know a lot of people that don't like them. I know a couple. But I agree with both Jeff and both Peter. Senior moment. That we have to let people live. We can't overgovern. It just gets nutso. And I know government's doing what we ask them to do, but sometimes they need to listen a little closer, truly what we're asking them. Because if we're going to be so regulated, it's just not the way we want to live. I personally don't want to live that way. I know there's concerns of public safety and things like that should be addressed. I don't disagree. But I think another thing is really that I don't care for is the pettiness that we have an anonymous tipster who can tip on something like this, and we have no idea what the motive is. I hate that. And I think that's wrong. I think if somebody is concerned enough to be upset about it, they should speak up, show up, and present their case. When they don't do that, to me, it goes against all what freedom and a democracy is about. Because what you've done now is you've taken a situation where nobody really knows who had a complaint. We don't know if it was the neighbor. We don't know if it was a staff member. We don't know who it was. I think that's wrong. And I think I'd like to see us do something about that. If you're going to complain, if it bothers you that much, have enough integrity to speak up. Okay, and that's about, I'm off my soapbox now, we're going home. Thank you all for coming down.
One more time for Tammy.
All right. I'm gonna do it, hey.
Really working on what Jeff said, maybe actually, Tammy makes